Hi, I'm Theresa and welcome to my channel. Today I'm filming my 13th episode of my series Sapphic Reads. If you've not already watched one of these videos, this is basically a series where I recommend to you 5 Sapphic books that I have read and loved recently. I am a bit behind, so I've got one from summer and then a few from the remaining of last year because I didn't read many books at the end of last year, so they can almost all fit in one video. As always, the Sapphic Reads playlist will be linked in the description. There's another 12 videos full of Sapphic recommendations, so there's definitely something for everyone in there. And I hope that you enjoy this video and you find a book that you want to read. The first book I want to talk to you about is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. This is a YA contemporary novel. I'm a bit iffy on whether it's contemporary or not. It's set in 2003. I hope that's still contemporary and not historical, but at this point I don't know. Regardless, this follows Juliet, who is Puerto Rican and has grown up in the Bronx in New York, and she's just come out to her family as a lesbian. She's not sure it's gone well, but she takes off on a summer adventure to do an internship in Portland, Oregon with this really well-loved, famous feminist author, and Juliet has really been taken in by this author's book and these talks of like pussy power, I think is like the slogan, and just all of this women empowerment. But when she meets the author, everything's not quite as it seems, and she begins to delve deeper into what feminism means to her as a queer Latina woman. And she really begins to navigate this world of white feminism and white queerness and how that doesn't really fit for her and for her experiences, and begins to discover something that does fit her more. And this is just a very, very powerful book. I really enjoyed reading it. I thought that the conversations it had surrounding white feminism, white queerness, and these communities and how they're open to people of colour and how people of colour can fit in them and maybe not fit is more the point, was really interesting to me. And I think there's a lot to take away from it in how inclusive your feminism is, how inclusive your queerness is, and I just thought it was a very moving, powerful book. So as I've mentioned, Juliet is a lesbian and she has a bit of a relationship with another woman, and this girl is a librarian who rides a motorcycle, and she like takes Juliet in really under her wing almost. And it's through this that Juliet begins to explore what feminism can mean for her and as a queer Latina woman, rather than the very white feminism of this author that she's interning with. And it's just such a powerful exploration of identity and culture and everything that goes with it, and I just thought it was such a good, touching book. Really enjoyed reading it. Juliet's brash and funny, and I just really enjoyed her character and the story. The next book I want to recommend is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. I will be clear, this book has a bisexual main character, so it's sapphic, but it does have an MF romance, so I understand if that's not what you're looking for, but I do encourage you to read this book anyway because it is wonderful. So this is the second book in the Brown Sister series by Talia Hibbert. These books can be read separately, but as they each follow one of 3 sisters, they do interlink, and it's really good to read all 3 together and to fully appreciate that. I loved all 3. I recommend you read them all, but if you only want to read Danny, you definitely can. So this follows Danny Brown, who's an academic, and she wants nothing more than academic success. You know, her love life's maybe not great, but she's focused on herself and her career. But when one day she gets stuck in the building during a fire drill, and the doorman comes to rescue her, who she has a bit of a friendship with, a bit of banter with, the 2 are filmed with him carrying her out of the building, and it blows up and everyone believes they're dating. And they're content to just let this die down, but then they see how this publicity is really helping Zafir's charity organisation for helping young boys with mental health issues through rugby, and the 2 decide to keep the ruse up for this benefit, and of course, as fake dating goes, some real feelings begin to develop. And I just really loved this story. I love this whole series. Talia Hibbert has amazing writing. She really makes you fall for these characters and connect with them, and I really enjoyed reading them all. I really liked how she incorporated the fake dating trope, and I just thought it all worked very well. Like, the characters, just their banter and everything was just so fun to read, and I just absolutely flew through the series, flew through this book. I had a great time reading it, and I definitely recommend it. I loved Also how Danny's biness was kind of discussed, and how she'd had previous relationships with women and how that was all handled. And I just loved her and Zafir together. I thought they were a lot of fun, and he was just such a nice, charming love interest as well. Like, you know, with his focus on mental health and charity work, like, what more could you want in a man? Obviously that doesn't apply to me, but for anyone who's attracted to men, you could not want more in a man. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Love Danny's humour, love the humour in all of these books. Definitely recommend you pick it up if you're a fan of romance. It's just fun. Next up is A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This one I just so thoroughly loved. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. Like, I didn't even know that it's told through basically in the form of a letter, and I had no idea about that, so that was a really nice touch, and I thought it added so much to the story. It gripped me right from the very first page. So this follows Constanta, and she was raised from nearly the dead and from being a medieval peasant into the bride of Dracula. And you follow her and Dracula throughout the centuries as he also brings in a cunning aristocrat and a starving artist into his group as his brides. And this book is told through this letter Constanta is writing to him after his death. And she's really exploring the relationship she had with him and also with the others. And it deals very, very heavily with the abusive relationship, the manipulation, everything that he did to them. And also her finding love with her other companions, her rivals. And it's just so beautifully lyrically told. The writing just blew me away. If you start reading it, you'll know just from the very first few pages. It's so stunning and so powerful and moving as well. I so thoroughly loved it. And this book has like a lot of scope. Like, it's covering centuries, but it never feels overlong or like things are being included that don't need to. It's concise. It tells the story it needs to tell without, you know, all of this scope of centuries and centuries. And it works so well, just detailing an abusive relationship, her initial feelings towards him, this almost hero worship, before them souring as she realizes the control he exerts over her and over the other brides, how he treats them all, how he puts them against each other. And it's just so gorgeously written. And as I've mentioned, she does fall in with these other brides. There's the cunning aristocrat as a woman and the starving artist as a man. There's a kind of polyamory relationship between all of them and Dracula himself, though the kind of more focus is and the more positive relationship is between the brides. And yeah, I just so thoroughly enjoyed it, so thoroughly recommend it. Definitely pick it up. The next book I want to talk to you about is The Grimrose Girls by Laura Paul. There's such a clever book. It weaves together so many fairy tales in this contemporary story. It's a murder mystery. It has so many things I love about it, and it just works so well together. So this follows three girls who attend an elite boarding school called the Grimrose Academy, and they are shocked by the sudden death of their best friend at the beginning of the school year, and they're determined to find out what happened after the death is ruled a suicide, and they don't believe that. So when the new girl Nanny appears, the four begin working together, and they uncover this secret dark history of the school and how this all links into the old fairy tales. And I don't mean the Disney ones, I mean the Grimm's fairy tales, the really dark ones. And as they begin to realise how these fairy tales connect with everyone at the school, it becomes a race against time and against fate as the girls discover that they are in these fairy tales. And this book just so cleverly weaves the fairy tales into the story. Like, it's so intrinsic to the makeup of these characters that it never feels forced or like they're being contorted to fit the fairy tale. Like, it's just so natural, and like it's so well embedded in the story that I didn't even notice some of them until the reveal, and then it's like, oh, of course. And it's just these girls, their friendship, I really loved it so much. And these girls are very, very queer. You have got two lesbian main characters. You have got one who's bi and I believe demi-romantic, or it could be demisexual and bi-romantic. I got them mixed up, sorry. And you've also got one who's aro ace, and just their friendship and then dealing with their friend's death and everything. It just, oh, it's so good. And the mystery is so clever and woven into the story, and I just so thoroughly enjoyed reading it. This is the first in a series. I thought it was a standalone when I read it, and it does have a satisfying ending, but it also leaves you wanting more, and there's more to uncover, so I'm very excited to read about that in the sequel, which comes out this year. It is overall just such a good, fun book. So thoroughly enjoyed it, flew through it, the mystery had me hooked. I so highly recommend it. The final book I want to talk about is The Midnight Girls by Lisa Jasinka. I read this one towards the end of last year, and I read most of it curled up in front of the fire, and that is the best way to read it. If that's possible for you, try it. If not, get the little the little things you can get on YouTube of the roaring fire background ambience. Get that up. It just works so well with the story. So this is a standalone YA fantasy, and you follow Marinka and Zosha. These are both two girls who were brought in by witches at a very young age and raised by them. And they have been raised in fierce competition with each other as they compete to be the first to steal a prince's heart. And they have never actually met, so when they're both sent an expedition to steal a prince's pure heart, which is very, very powerful for a witch, they begin their journey as friends after they run in with each other and have no idea who the other is. However, once they do discover each other's identities, the full rivalry begins. And this takes place in this kind of snow-capped kingdom, inspired by late 18th century Poland, and you can really feel the brink of change, the political machinations happening at this time, even as our girls aren't fully involved in it. They're just there to kill the prince. And it works so well with the story, and I just thought it was just so gorgeous. The setting, the atmosphere is stunning, and the characters themselves, these girls are so morally grey. They are villains, and they're not completely unapologetically villains. You know, they don't have redemption arcs. They are evil, and it's brilliant. And reading their characters and their perspectives as well, they're so different but so similar at the time. There's a lot of night and day comparisons between the two. You know, one is fiery and bright and impulsive, and others icy and like night and cunning and everything. And it's just, it works so well, this comparison between the two, and the kind of opposites attract almost, especially as once their rivalry begins, they're so obsessed with each other, but then they actually know each other now, so more feelings begin to develop, and this development felt so natural to their characters, and it just, it's stunning. It worked so well. I loved my time reading it. This is just a gorgeous, atmospheric, magical story with villainous sapphics who quite literally compete to steal the beating heart of a prince, and just the setting, the atmosphere, characters, everything mind-blowing, stunning. I so highly recommend it. And yes, that is the end of the video. That's all the books I have for you. As always, there will be links to all of these books on Goodreads down below, as well as reviews where I have them if you want to know more of my thoughts. There will also be my social media if you want to keep up with me elsewhere, you know, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, all that good stuff. I'm on all of them. I'm probably talking about sapphic books, so if you like my content here, you'll probably like it there. And yes, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in another video soon.